Hey everybody, welcome to Olympic Minds, Leadership Without Limits. Today we're going to talk to one of my favorite people of all time, Tracie Kenyon. So we're going to talk about, listen, this is not a podcast for just anybody. This is for those people who want to exceed mediocrity and move to mastery. This is a podcast for those people who want to move beyond success to significance. This is a podcast not about theory. This is a podcast really driven from those things that are heart-tested, results-driven, right? And grit movement. It's those things that people really know because they've had to go through so many challenges in life. And so the people who really want to move beyond what I say is the normal mindset to the Olympic level mindset, because we know the Olympians, those are those people that exceed expectation, the people who live in the top of the top of the top, just like the people who are beyond leaders, the leaders of leaders and the visionary of visionaries. So we're going to talk to Tracie Kenyon, and I will tell you this about her. She was a former CEO of Montana Credit Unions. She's now a consultant. And those things really don't define her. That is not what defines her. What defines her is her inner beauty, her authenticity, her compassion, her kindness, and her brilliance. So I'm going to let Tracie say a little bit about herself and tell the folks, Tracie, like something they ought to know that really defines you beyond your titles.
Oh my gosh. Sherry, first of all, thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to spend time with one of my favorite people, Sherry Winn. I mean, anytime you get to hang with an Olympian, that's like pretty big stuff. Something about me besides my title. I think something about me that might be, I don't know if it's interesting, but is that I grew up in a small town in Oregon with big dreams. And I remember thinking many times as a kid, and even now, I said this to someone the other day, well, I'm just a little girl from Albany, Oregon. But what is amazing is that experience, education, relationships, all of that shapes us. So we end up at this wise old age where we get to be dispensing, again, wisdom or thoughts and I think what defines me is that I still see myself as the little girl from Albany, Oregon.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Tracie. I thank you for saying that. You said something that I think is what many people want to know, which is I had dreams as a young kid, and I was really from nowhere, but I had these dreams, and then you accomplished so many of those things, those dreams, those goals. How did you get from the dreaming part to the reality part?
Oh, God. What's interesting, Sherry, is just recently I've started to be a little bit retrospective about my career. I've had 40 years in my industry, and I think at that point, I know, right? I kind of sat back and went, "Wow!"
But you look like you're 35. You look like you're 35. Come on. That's unfair right there. That's just unfair. Yes. You look so young.
Prodigy, child prodigy. But one of the things, for example, that I thought I wanted to do when I was in college, I thought I wanted to be a college professor. And I never went down that path. However, interestingly, last week, I was teaching for about the 5th or 6th year in an executive management school down at the Pomona colleges. Last year, I was hired by the University of Wisconsin's coaching school to help in their program. And I also was hired after my master's degree to teach a class in that master's program. And so it's interesting because my life went in a different direction than I think I thought it would. And yet the goals that I had established, the intentions that I had, they manifest. And there are people who are extraordinarily intentional from the start. Mm-hmm. I wasn't one of those people. I mean, I would love to tell people, oh, I was so intentional and I had it planned out. No, not at all. My very first job was literally answering phones. I was right out of college. And I remember feeling very depressed. I mean, feeling very like, I've just worked my butt off. I worked full time as an undergrad. So it's like, and this is what I'm doing. And I actually took a salary less than I made at the bookstore that I worked out through school, which was like to add insult to injury, right? And yet I ended up in an industry that really fueled my passion. and that I really fell in love with. And I was on the phones for about 6 weeks. And during that time, I said to myself, I really had to pick myself up. So you can either be a jerk and think you're better than everyone else, and because you're educated and blah blah, you think you are at that point, and all that. And instead I decided I'm going to be the best damn. Oh, can I say damn? I'm going to be the best damn phone receptionist that this company's ever had. And within probably 18 months, I was starting a new department for them. And so running that and starting that, and I had an opportunity to make a real difference there.
Let me just stop you, because I want to say mindset, because you just said something about mindset, right? You are in this position that a lot of people face. I mean, this is not unusual for people to face this reality that you're in a position you think you should be somewhere else. You're like, this doesn't feel like the level of me. I know there's more within me. I have this superwoman and she's not achieving whatever it is I want to achieve. I'm so far from where I thought I would be. And then you said, like, here's the deal. I could have gone 2 directions, or maybe 3, but basically 2. I could have just gone, well, this is terrible, this sucks, but I'm just going to deal with it. I'm just going to live here, and this is what I'm going to live in. And this is good. Or you could have said, hey, I'm going to be the best I can to get to. So first, for just personal fulfillment, right? For personal fulfillment, I'm going to be the best me. And then that moved you up. So were you really aware of the choice you were making? Where at that point, did you understand how powerful thoughts were? Or is that something you learned later?
I think I learned that later. Although I guess because once I said it to myself, I really did mean it. And I am also extraordinarily thankful that I started my career there, because there's nothing like starting at on that rung, because I knew which departments were really busy. I knew which managers worked hard. I mean, I knew all of that. You kind of get that sense. But I don't think that I was that self-aware at that point. But I am very thankful that I did dig in and say, I'm going to do this, because it set me on a career trajectory that I've just been blessed.
Right. Well, blessing comes with, I think, gratitude. You think blessing comes with gratitude, and blessing comes with the work ethic, right? So it's all combined. So let's talk about mindset, though. So you really didn't know at that point. You did make the right choice, which is I'm going to be the best version of myself that I can be right now. And then later on, you learned, because you and I have talked a lot about mindset. We've talked a lot about this thing. And I know you coach many, many people now in mindset. So tell me, where did you start learning about the power of the mind, the mindset? Where did that come into your life, and how did that alter it?
Probably, I would tell you that when I think about my career, my 20s, I was sort of bobbing along, and I worked in several different places, and I enjoyed all of them, and I learned from that. And I had great relationships and all of that. And probably about my mid-30s. Is when I went back to school, got my master's degree. I really started to think, okay, you probably need to be a little more intentional. And even at that point, though, I don't know that I had an end point in mind. Like, if you would have told me when I was 35 that I was going to be a CEO for 22 years, I might have said, wait a minute, I'm a little girl from Albany, Oregon. What are you talking about? And so, but that's really when I started to become much more, intentional, and to start really connecting a few of the dots. And that came because I had an opportunity to be a corporate trainer. And so at that point, I was very thankful for all of these experiences. Like, I've been a phone receptionist. I've been a collector, not something I ever thought I would want to do. I've been a lender. I've been in marketing. I mean, so all of that came together in this kind of neat package that allowed me then to train and help others along their journey. And I think that's where I really started to think, ooh, I like this talent development thing. I think this might be my forever gig. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't. But
I think it was, because, even as the CEO, True. You were interested in talent development. I mean, this is not something that was just like passing thought. You've always been interested in how can I help the people around me level up or become the best version of themselves or whatever. You always wanted to do that. So, but let's dive deeper into this mindset thing. Because you know me, I'm like all about the mindset. I'm all about the thoughts, thoughts are things and all those kind of things. So you went back to school in your 30s. Wow. Not many people would do that. And that was kind of what I heard what you say was the ignition of starting to think a little bit differently, starting to be more intentional. So how did you become more intentional? Like, what were the actual steps? Did you write goals down? Did you have like action steps sort of? What was it that you say when you say I was intentional? What did that look like?
So that's a great question. Yes to writing goals down. Yes to also speaking them. I was really clear to myself and to others when asked, what is it that I want to do? So I had articulated it in several different ways. Interestingly, though, I'll tell you, I really thought that I would be a trainer for the rest of my career. I loved it. It was perfect for me. And life had a different path. It took me in a little bit different path. But at that point, my goal was to be the best corporate trainer in my industry. I mean, that really was, and I was working toward that, and I had a lot of great opportunities and a ton of fun. And I was very, very, very fulfilled at that point in my career, very fulfilled.
And so, but you said, and this is important, that life throws stuff at us, right? We have these, people will say, oh, I'm in a midlife crisis. I never think it's a crisis. I think it's a transformation as a result of all those different chapters in our lives, right? So, I went from being an athlete to a college basketball coach. I never, ever thought I would leave athletics like that. I popped out being an athlete and it was my pathway, and then life happened. So when life happens, it causes us to change, to reflect, to become something different. We can become better or better. There's always that opportunity for everybody. So what were some of the life changes that you had that caused you to think differently?
Well, my husband got a job offer in another state, and this was in the 1990s. We didn't do remote work back then, and it's hard to be a corporate trainer and work remotely anyway. And so I followed along, and what happened then was I got an opportunity to work for a trade association inside my industry. So I knew of trade associations, I just had never worked in one. And they said, hey, we've been wanting to have a corporate trainer go out and deliver to our clients on a fee basis. And I said, I can do that. I mean, I'm thinking back, I'd been in 4 different roles at that point, 4 different companies, and every single one of them, I had created a new role. And so I was like, oh, creating a new role and doing training, I can do that. And so again, I thought, boy, this is it. I mean, this is pretty great. I am now kind of at a hub. I'm going out, I'm training 20 or so different organizations every month. And it's really interesting, and I'm out and about. And then my company reorganized, and they asked if I was interested in moving up the ladder. And I thought, well, maybe I should look at this. So I did. So I applied for the job that they had open, and I didn't get that job. Someone else did, but they offered me another vice president role. So, and actually the role that was better suited for me. And so I said yes. And I got to continue to do some of the talent development, but it really propelled me into doing a lot more government relations. I ended up being a chief lobbyist for that organization for a bit, and so just a lot of different skills and different experiences. And I don't think I ever let that goal of being the best darn talent developer that I can be, because I still got to have a lot of opportunities to go out and speak and work with groups and that sort of thing. But then, I was in that role for about 4 years, and and then I got recruited away to take the CEO role here in Montana. And that's what I did for 22 years. And then about 4 years before I retired, I thought there is something else out there for me. I love this, and I loved my team, and I loved all my clients. I mean, truly loved them. It was a hard decision to make. And I remember telling my board well before I retired and I said, my end date will be sooner than I think we all think it might be. Not that not that end date, but my departure from the organization, and that's when I really leaned into this idea, this notion of coaching and talent development,
Right.
and went back to school again. Got another degree from the University of Wisconsin, this time in executive coaching, or a certification, I should say.
Right.
And now here I am.
So you've changed things so many times, or I mean, I think that people do. We do change things. And what I find in a lot of people, and I know you found this too, because we've had discussions about this, is as they shift positions, there becomes a self-doubt, which is normal and natural. Some people go, I have the imposter syndrome. So all of a sudden, it goes from self-doubt to this blown-up syndrome that they think somehow they caught. And I'm like, well, you didn't catch it. It's just natural when you're changing. So how did you get through that self-doubt? Because this is a thing. You're changing roles. Like, think about this, like how many times you changed role, and every time you changed role, it was something new, it was something different, it was something expanded, it was something maybe elevated in it and scaled in a different way, and you go, yes, I'll do it. Where did that, when you heard that self-doubt voice come in, what did you say or what did you do to it so that you could just keep going?
Well, most recently, I will tell you that I have not killed that voice, but I've really, really eradicated it, because I've really started calling it a liar. And I'm very clear, and my coaching clients know this. Like, when my left side of my brain starts talking nasty stuff to me, I just stop and say, is that true? No. And then I say, stop lying to yourself. And I think back then, I don't think I was, again, as intentional, but I think always I would think, okay, I've done something similar. Mm-hmm. And if I did it once, I think I can do it again. And I'm thankful that I had great parents who encouraged that, and who really fostered that idea that you can do or be anything. And so I do have that. That's a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, although I've never worked for myself or been an entrepreneur like you. But I have that sense that I can build stuff. I can make this work. But the self-doubt, it always creeps in, doesn't it? It always
forever.
Yep.
I mean, some people say they want to eliminate it. And I think that you made a great point. When you start something new, when you're expanding in any way, there's going to be a little voice that comes in. And so do you let that voice get bigger and bigger and bigger? Or do you recognize it and say, hey, look, I love the question, is it true? Like, is this true? And if you know that it's not true, then you can say, no, you're a liar. Like, I have all this experience. I've had this success in my background. I don't know why you're coming up. You're being silly. You're being, I'm not going to listen to this. All that kind of, the things that we can do to, make it softer. And not that it won't come back, because it's part of being human. It is part of being human that we're going to get this little voice, in our ear. And yet, if we let it get bigger, it will. Like, it will grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And if we decide to shut it down before it even starts that reel, then we have a lot better shot at getting control of it. And it'll repeat itself, but it won't do it again and again and again every second. It will be like every other day. Do you think you can do this? Of course. Like, stop.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And I think the other thing, Sherry, is if we allow it to have any space, it just comes up like a whack-a-mole, right? You beat one down, and then you got another one, and then you got another one, and that's exhausting. And so I truly have found that just calling it out and putting it to bed. Now, again, there's always going to be a question. I'm not Superwoman. I don't know everything, and I get intimidated just like everyone does, and all the things. But when you really think, okay, am I smart enough? Yes. Am I talented enough? Yes. Do I have enough experience to try this? Yes, I do. And do I have the grit and determination to see it through? And the answer, yes, 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 yes. Okay, then let's go, right?
So what do you say to people, like, you grew up in a family who said you can do or be anything. That's a great foundation. A lot of people don't have that foundation. They don't have the foundation that says you can do or be anything. So you got that as part of your programming. Now, for a lot of people who don't have that, who, unfortunately, they had parents or grandparents or step parents who said, you're a failure, or you're not gonna amount to anything, or, whatever that they said. And please understand when I say that if people knew better, they'd do better. So your parents are doing the best they can with what they know. So I'm just saying that, like, as a caveat for you people. Yet, how do you deal with those people? Because they truly, like Tracie, you had some belief system that said, I am worthy. There's a lot of people that I work with and that you work with, they don't have that base of worthiness. So how do you get them to have the base of worthiness?
That is it's a really deep question. And that's one of those ones where as coaches, we say, do they need a therapist? Probably. And, it's one of the things that you and I both will say, okay, I think, we don't want to play in that space. However, so much of growth comes from, use the term gratitude earlier, and I think forgiveness. And I think when we can recognize that, look, bad things happen to all of us. I mean, I could list a myriad of terrible things that either have happened to me or that I have done that, I'm not proud of. And if I choose to have those be the things I lead with, well, my life would probably have ended up quite differently. Instead, I think we cannot, just like we cannot live in toxic positivity, we cannot ignore, because again, remember the whack-a-mole again, right? It's going to come up. So the way I think to move past those deep and unhealthy situations and hurts is to go back and have some perspective and think, were they doing the best with what they had, just as you said? And if so, I need to forgive them.
Right.
Were they not? Were they just awful humans? And that happens, right? And in that case, then forgiveness is not for them. Forgiveness is for you. Because if you don't let it go, you are constantly dragging all of that junk with you.
Absolutely.
And so you have to find a way, I think a healthy way, to let it go. And I really believe that that forgiveness is that way. And then maybe I'm really curious, as I know you are. I think that's a value that we share. And maybe get curious and think, I wonder what happened to them. Oprah Winfrey wrote a great book with, I think his name's Bruce Perry, Dr. Bruce Perry, a few years ago. The title is What Happened to You? And the question is, rather than why are you this way, or what's wrong with you,
right?
Asking what happened to you. And I think even doing that when we're trying to gain some perspective can be extraordinarily helpful.
Absolutely. We're all programmed, whether we know it or not. Between the ages of 0, 6, or 7, we're all programmed. So what that means is that people around us, parents, grandparents, step-parents, whoever they are, whatever their beliefs are, become our beliefs. We don't know we're doing this. We have no idea we're doing this. And that's our blueprint for the way we see the world. And it's why so oftentimes we see people who are abusers or get in an abusive relationship again. We see that. Or it's why people who had a family in alcoholics, they become in addiction. They become in that kind of frame of mind. And it's only when we recognize that we were programmed and that we can unprogram. Now it's not like, oh, just me push a button and I'm going to unprogram all this stuff. But if we can recognize, like, this is just a programming, and if we choose to reprogram, that we can. And so I'm a living, like, proof of this. Okay, so I'm a living proof, because I was really depressed. I was suicidal. I thought about suicide for about 10 years. I had to fight myself. I'd be driving a car and I'd like, the bridge is over there. I'm just going to jump. No, like, this was the kind of thing that I went through. And so people now will go, you're so optimistic. Like, that would have never happened to you, because I chose to reprogram my brain. And I think if most people don't know that they were programmed. And so when you're saying like, why were your parents that way? They were programmed.
Mhm.
What happened to them? What happened to them that created that where they are today? Quick story, my dad used to be like, he would buy 4 rolls of toilet paper for the week. He'd put 2 in the boys' bathroom, the men's bathroom, and 2 in the girls' bathroom. Like 4 rolls of toilet paper a week. And 2 for the boys, right? Like, come on, Dad. But it took me a long time to understand he grew up without any toilet paper at all. Like, they had an outhouse. They used a Sears Roebuck catalog. They used corn cobs. Like, they were dirt poor. And so until I understood, like, that was his starting place. And so for him, buying 4 rolls for a week, it was like this enormous amount of toilet paper.
He was so generous.
It was so you have to understand, why people are who they are. And if you can get some insight about that, not that it's okay for them to keep behaving that way. That's not okay. But you can have empathy about the challenges that they had to overcome.
Yes, empathy. And, actually, it's so interesting, isn't it? How things just sort of weave together. I just finished a session that I'm going to do in a couple of weeks for a group of leaders that is using EQ to build empathy. Because, right, so emotional intelligence and empathy, and that the importance of empathy and understanding and trying really to walk a mile in people's shoes, because we just don't know. And, another little trick that I have done, because I found myself, one of the things when I was really working on myself and understanding and knowing myself, is that I found myself so judgmental of people that I don't know. I'm not judgmental. My friends, when you're in my circle or if you're a colleague, I pretty well accept you for who you are. Of course, I judge myself, but that's a whole nother. We just talked about that, the whack-a-mole, right? But what I would find is that, and it would be for silly things. I'd look at someone and say, that's an unfortunate wardrobe choice, right? And like, why would
That's probably what you said about me.
No, I never said that about you. You know that. But you know what I mean? I mean, what a weird thing to say about someone I don't even know. Yeah. And so when I was really working on reprogramming my brain, I started to instead think a positive thing. If I could, if there was something that just popped in my head, I would think that positive thing, or I would send a good vibe their way or say a prayer for them. And really for me, and again, my thinking something nasty about someone that I probably never was going to interact with, doesn't do anything to them, right? It meant nothing to them. For what it did for me though, was it changed my outlook, right? My word of the year this year is sonder. And sonder is a made up word.
I was going to say, I didn't know that word. I was like,
right?
Dictionary, please.
It's from John Koenig's Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. And he has created words that are the feelings, if you will, that all of us understand and express. We just didn't have a name for it. So sonder, and I'm just going to butcher this because I could have grabbed the book, but sonder is essentially the recognition that every human that I interact with or that I see or that come into contact with has as unique and interesting and intricate and crazy life as I do. And they're just trying to do what I'm doing, which is make their way through the world the best that they can. And when I use that word, and I pick a word of the year because unlike 91% of Americans, I do not follow through on any resolutions. So instead of the last 5 or 6 years, I've picked a word, and sonder has been my word this year. And it really has helped me to lean into the fact that every single human being that's walking around is like this collection of experiences and joy and sorrow and love and, all the things. Just like I am. And it really helped me to think about people differently. I needed to do that.
Well, and I think that, we all need to do it. I'm doing a Course in Miracles right now. And so one of the put lessons by numbers, and it says, love has no grievances. And so it's like, oh, well, that's cool. And then I'm listening to my mindfulness. So I'm mindful of, what, what I think. I'm like, holy cow, I've got no love in me. I'm all grievances. I can't, all I do is think about terrible things. So it's interesting when you really start listening to what you do and the judgments that you have, right? The grievances you have against other people, and they should have done this and they should have done that. And it's insane. And so that retraining of the brain is really hard because we have the tendency to repeat thoughts again and again and again and again and again and again. And so whatever gets stuck there is something that we repeat until we change it. Like you decide, you made a decision that you were going to start seeing better things about people. And, I'm making the decision right now, although I will say that I've got a journey to go. I've got a journey.
We all do. What's interesting, Sherry, is that, again, lately I've been more kind of retrospective about my career. And for whatever reason, I was thinking about a beaded bracelet that I had many years ago. I think my daughter, who's now 25, was 3 at the time. And she grabbed it. We were in church and she grabbed it and it broke and the beads spilled everywhere. And I remember looking down and seeing this piece of string or whatever it was, stretchy stuff, and the beads all over, and thinking, oh, I loved that bracelet, and I will never be able to make it back, because the artist, it wasn't neat, not a tidy pattern, it was an organic pattern. And again, in that moment, I said, no, you know what though, they're all beautiful, and you can restring them to something that is gorgeous and different, and right, so there can be a rebirth, if you will. And that's kind of how I see my life and my career. I sort of see it as, and it's still not done. There are still beats that are getting added, right? But it's different than I expected. The pattern is different than I expected, but it is still, I'm still proud of it, and it's beautiful, right? So
it's a great story to tell, Tracie, because it was broken, and it's an object, right? And so most of us will get so upset at the object, and be mad at our child or the spouse or whoever broke the object. Right. And if you can reframe that, right? If you can reframe it, then instead of holding that grievance, holding that grievance, you can make another choice. You can choose peace instead, right? You could choose insight instead. You can choose love instead. It's just that we're so habitually strung to, this is horrible, I can't believe it happened, this is terrible, it'll never be the same. Like all the stories we tell ourselves, it's a challenge. So when we make this change, like you made this change, you decided to rewire your brain. How did that impact you when you did that? What did that change for you?
What it changed for me was a lot more personal accountability, my friend. All of a sudden, I had to be responsible for everything. Whether and I don't mean it like the whole house was mine, but I could. You're absolutely right. When I didn't want to blame her for she's 3. She doesn't know me different. I have a great story. About 2 months ago, we were making dinner, and I stuck a pan in the oven. I don't usually stick like a frying pan. And actually, my husband had said, well, why don't you just put it in that pan? They're oven safe, and just stick it in there. Okay, great. So then I realized when I was pulling it out, I grabbed a pot holder and I pulled it out and I set it on top of the stove. And then I set the pot holder on the other side, right? Not the smartest move. But then I looked down and did something else. I came back and I grabbed it, and I gave myself you can't see it now. It's really healed nicely, but this massive burn. I mean, I'm not kidding. It was the size, I don't know, was that a 50-cent piece? Maybe. It was big, and it hurt. I mean, it hurt. And as I couple of things I'm proud of myself is that I just set the pan back down, put it under water, and I can tell you that
And did you curse? Did you curse?
I might have. Sorry, Lord, I might have. But what I didn't do, I will say this, and I wanted to, right? I wanted to say, you're the one that told me to put that in there. You're you. I mean, there was a bit of that came out right there, because it's kind of that, like almost that.
Yeah.
And I thought, as I've got my hand under the water, I'm reliving it. As I got my hand under the water, I said, yeah, that was a bad decision that I made, right? And by taking full responsibility, because I was responsible. Yeah, he gave me the idea. That it was all me. He did not force my hand or say, oh, go pick that up without a hot pad. It won't be hot anymore, right? But that initial reaction, and that's when I kind of realized, okay, this work is working. Like it's actually working, because I could feel that, and it just didn't go anywhere. It just went away, and I was like, yep, you own this, and you're likely gonna have a scar to prove it.
So it changes all your relationships, right? So circling back to the idea of why, everything we've talked about has kind of been a little bit different for people maybe listening. And it's all about that, developing that Olympic level mind that helps you become somebody totally different. And it shows, and you show up differently to people. And when you show up differently to people, they show up differently to you. And you create better relationships with yourself and with other people. So Tracie, kind of as an ending, is there anything that you want to share with people that we haven't talked about today that you think would make a major impact in their life in terms of just developing that different mindset?
So I am, at my heart, a relatively simple person. So I like to kind of keep it pretty basic. I wrote this down. I would say, do good, be kind, and lead with your heart. And there's a book that was written in the 1980s, 86 actually, by Robert Fulghum. All I Really Need to Know, I learned in kindergarten. And many of us, in our generation, you remember that book. But I mean, even if you never read the book, the title is enough to remember what we're taught. We're taught to live communally, right? We're taught at that age to share. We're taught to care for each other and all of that. And I used to tell my kiddos' teachers, when they'd ask, what's the most important thing you want her to learn this year? I would say, to be a good human. I want her to learn good people skills. She is smart enough, she's going to capture all the rest of that by osmosis or whatever else, like in the flashcards at home. But really, at the end of the day, what brings the most joy, I believe, as a leader, as a human, is to be a decent person that people want to be around and have healthy relationships.
For sure. So Tracie, if anybody wanted to contact you, if they're like, oh my gosh, I listen to Tracie Kenyon and she's so amazing, and you are, like, I love you to the ends of the earth. And Tracie and I have had tons of conversations about all kinds of different belief systems and thoughts and sharing. We've shared a lot over the years. So Tracie, if somebody wants to reach you and they have a question, or maybe, your specialty is credit unions. So if you're somebody from a credit union, you're looking to be a coach, you're looking for some answers there, I know that Tracie has them for you. Tracie, how would they contact you?
So LinkedIn, and so that's a great way, but also my email address is my first name spelled Tracie @humanity, and we spell that humanidei.com.
Nice. Tracie, you're marvelous, as I've always known. I love the little tidbits of information that you shared, which are, when you might listen to something really small like forgiveness, and it's not small, because forgiveness is the essence, right? It is so huge, like the difference it can make in you. But when you share something like that, it really is a thing that make a great leader. I mean, we don't talk about strategies on the show. We're not talking about scaling. We're talking about the essence of being a great leader. So folks, if you want to learn more, you can always find me on LinkedIn too. You can also find me at www.thewinningleadershipcompany.com. Thank you for joining. Come back again and share. Everybody, have a winning day. Bye now.